Alright, I've been promising I was going to do a video on this, and I'm sorry it took me so long between some issues with the local constables, inheriting a Toyota 4Runner, and nursing an infant kitten. I haven't had much time for my favorite hobby, which is Frankensteining vehicles. This one's for the 1987 and perhaps beyond 88 Toyota Supra combination meter when it comes to getting all the gauges right, with regards to integrating another engine. And I know one of the most popular iteration of that is the 2jz, which I finished mine pretty much. It took me about 2 years, and I probably said that before, just from time and life getting in the way. We'll jump right into this. This is the factory Toyota service manual that I scored from eBay somewhere so many years back. These are very, very helpful. I'll say it again. If you have this, you're golden. There's nothing you can't figure out without this, by having this book. The way I got this working was by using most of what was already there, and I could tell you that as long as you're just changing the engine, things like the voltmeter, the rear light indicator, the brake switch, the charge light, if you're going to use the original boost sensor, that's possible too. Of course, it's not going to read more than 8 pounds. I'm pushing about 7 right now, so I'm still using it. All of that wiring is still correct and still intact. The radiator signal, this one is still the same. That's for the overflow bottle there in the front, that sensor in the bottom. All of this stays intact. The issues you're going to have is going to be the oil pressure and the water temperature, and that's pretty much your vitals, I would think. The fuel sender and everything is going to be the same. As long as you don't mess with that, you're really going to be doing the oil sender and the water temperature gauge. I actually had to convert a couple of fittings on the thermostat housing to get the water temperature to work correctly. You can see here the M1 plug that I talked about in the first integration video, pin 9. It's a yellow wire with a green stripe. That's the one that you need to grab and jump into for your temperature gauge. And you have to have a nice ground somewhere on the intake manifold. That's going to be a brown wire on M1 right there. For the oil sender, I put the same little muffin sensor that was on the 7M engine into one of the twin turbo holes, and I used the same little cover, the same little the little rubber cover, and the same little clip that was on it. That goes to a yellow wire with a black stripe on pin M1, and that just hooks right up as well. As long as you have those original sensors, the dash is going to work just fine. One thing that I ran into here, which seemed to be an issue for the boost sensor and for the fuel gauge, I had the console off where the shifter was. There was a ground that needed to be screwed to the floor that I didn't have in place until I put everything back together. Once that ground was in place, all of this started working. The fuel gauge, the boost sensor, a couple of other things that weren't working quite right. So make sure all your grounds are there. And really, aside from your vital signs, the water and the oil, everything else is going to work. And if you figure out a way to adapt the cruise control to your throttle plate like I did, that's working just fine as well. I'm going to do a video on that one. That'll probably be just about as brief as this one. But there's a lot that I thought you needed from the 7M computer that you actually don't. You don't need the computer for things like cruise control or air conditioning, much to my delight. There wasn't much integration in that at all. There was a lot of troubleshooting because everything from the fuses to the fan blower were out. And I'm going to do a 3-part video on the air conditioning because I think there's a lot of information and it needs to be separated into 3 parts. But this combination meter, I guess you call it the instrument cluster. This is not hard if you keep all the wiring where it belongs. Really the only 2 issues you're going to have are your water temperature and your oil. And then getting back to the tachometer, I know that's important to a lot of people. That one's going to be a black wire on pin 4 on the same M1. You see there, M1 controls a lot of the instrumentation. And just for those of you who have that pin, M1 looks like this. And you can see these are the pins involved with the meter, the combination meter as they call it. Get back to here. And for the tachometer, if you're using the Aristo vvti harness, you'll see that one of the igniter pins is missing. I think I went over that in one of the last videos. If you can get a wire with the same connector into that hole where there's just a rubber block, you can run a wire straight from that igniter, just like the factory igniter, into pin 4 on M1, and your tachometer is going to work just fine like it did before. That's pretty much it. There seemed to be a lot of mystery surrounding this, but it's really not that hard, guys. You know, I just wish I had someone to point and say, look, hook this wire up and hook that wire up. It took me a while to figure all this out, but I don't mind giving it away because I just want to be helpful. Again, that's my mission here with doing these videos. So anyway, happy Labor Day, guys, and keep on wiring. Do it all yourself. Don't buy your car, build it, just like everyone else says. Cheers.